Breeders' Cup 2024, the handicapping question show. We've had a lot of questions over the week once the fields were announced on yesterday, and we've had some questions on the Breeders' Cup contender videos over the last couple of weeks. So I thought we'd get on, take a look at some Breeders' Cup handicapping questions, talk about some of the potential pace scenarios, and also take a look at the Breeders' Cup Classic, a little bit of that. I do have a Breeders' Cup Classic handicapping video already up on the channel, but I did want to answer a few questions. We do have a 14-horse field entered for the Breeders' Cup Classic. We also have an also eligible in rattle and roll. So he is not in yet. We did have a couple of scratches, a key scratch in the juvenile fillies, a Bob Baffert trainee, non-compliant. She won the Oakleaf Stakes. She has been scratched. So we already have a couple of key Breeders' Cup scratches, and I'm sure we'll have a couple of more before Friday and Saturday. But I did want to take your questions. So if you have a question, make sure to get those in the comments. But let's take a look. Now, we will be having a Breeders' Cup handicapping show on Friday, and that's going to be at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. We're going to come on and we're going to talk at least an hour, take all of your questions, go over the Breeders' Cup fields. So that'll be coming up Friday, November 1st, 8 p.m. Central. But I did want to talk about the incremental splits. This question came from Twitter, and they wanted to know how I got these incremental splits. Now, these come from Daily Racing Form Formulator. So I'm going to show you how to get to them. If you use Formulator at all, what you can do is if you pull up the past performances and if you click on one of the results charts, so we're going to use Derma Sotogake as an example. When you click on the results charts, you will get different options. You'll get the standard chart. You'll also get the next race chart. You'll get the buyer speed figures, and you'll get the incremental pace. So this is how the incremental pace is pulled up from DRF Formulator, and you can pull that up for any results charts. And what's nice is you can see the quarter-mile split, the half-mile split, the three-quarter-mile split, and a lot of people may not be aware that that is available. Now, another thing I did want to show is a lot of times people want to look up the mare searches. So if you type in mare full searches on your browser into a search browser, you'll see from Equibase the dams full search come up. And what you can do is you can then pull that up and you can search by any dam out there. So we're going to search out Nana Bella, who is the mare of Fierceness. So you can see that she's had 4 foals. She's had Menti, who's a 2-year-old this year, Fierceness, who's a 3-year-old, Dolce Bella, and Action Isle. So that's a way to see how the mares are coming out for a certain foal. So did want to take a look at that, and those are some ways to take a look at some of the mares on a different foal search. So let's get back to handicapping the Breeders' Cup. One of the key horses that I think is going to be a key horse is Ikoro Sig. He set a course record in Japan. He's entered in the Juvenile Turf Sprint, and his morning line is 7-2. He's by Twirling Candy, purchased as a OBS March sale for $250,000, but he's 2 for 2 and 7-2 on the morning line. So that is a key horse I think that you'll definitely want to take a look at as you start to look at the past performances. Now, I do think a key matchup is in the juveniles. We've got Chancer McPatrick, who's a closer, taking on East Avenue, who's a front runner. East Avenue winning the Keeneland Futurity, and Chancer McPatrick winning the Champagne Stakes. So Anthony's on the East Avenue. Chancellor McPatrick not going to be able to catch him. So it's kind of unusual. You've got the front runner, you've got the closer, Chancellor McPatrick versus East Avenue. East Avenue 5-2 on the morning line. Chancellor McPatrick at 3-1 on the morning line. Godolphin Blue for East Avenue, and Chad Brown training Chancellor McPatrick. That'll be a key handicapping question for Friday on Future Stars Friday as we take a look at some of the Future Stars Friday card. Now, East Avenue, you take a look overall, he's 2 for 2. A positive performance is he improved from an 86 to a 95. That was in his second lifetime start. And now this is a key third lifetime start for East Avenue. He's got the pedigree. And also, when you take a look at Chancellor McPatrick, he's already had that third lifetime start. So I don't think he's not going to improve quite as much. But if you notice, he went from an 81 to an 88 to a 92. And that's why a lot of times I talk about horses improving in that second and third lifetime start. And Chancellor McPatrick was able to do that in that third lifetime start. He improved from his first lifetime start to a second lifetime start. So a lot of times when maidens go up in class, people are not able to kind of project that some of these horses are going to improve in their second and third lifetime start. So Chancellor McPatrick versus East Avenue. The Japan horse coming in that race, one lifetime start. He won by 5 lengths. I do think he does stand a little bit of a chance just because some of the Japan horses definitely are trained more from a stamina standpoint. Now, Siggy Mendoza, he says the post position not ideal for East Avenue, but the Bob Baffert horses are also speedy. And I kind of agree with that. We've got some speedy Bob Baffert runners in the race. I think Citizen Bull is capable of setting the pace. Gaming, what's interesting about him, he did pass on the American Pharoah Stakes, and they elected to not run in that American Pharoah Stakes, meaning they didn't want to get too many races in him here as a 3-year-old. So when you take a look at the handicapping questions, I think you definitely have to consider the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, I did want to talk about a possible pace meltdown. Whenever you get to the Breeders' Cup, it seems like there's about one race a year that we do get a pace meltdown. And I kind of ranked them in order of the possible pace meltdowns. We've got the sprint, I think, could have a pace meltdown. Then I think the dirt mile. You've got the filly and mare sprint, the juvenile, and the classic. I do think any one of those could possibly have a pace meltdown on Friday or Saturday. I think the sprint, you've got Straight No Chaser as a pure speedball, and then you've got Federal Judge and also Mulligan. I don't think Mulligan needs the lead. I think Federal Judge in his last 2 races has shown the most potential here for a pace meltdown in that Breeders' Cup sprint. So yes, Straight No Chaser is a good horse, but if they get going too fast, you always can have that pace meltdown. We saw Jackie's Warrior meltdown a couple of times in a couple of different races. The dirt mile, I think there's a lot of speed signed up in that one. So I think your dirt mile race, you could definitely have some possible pace meltdowns in that race as well. Now, another horse that I think is getting a lot of intrigue, 8-1 on the morning line. Next is won the Greenwood Cup by 10 lengths, 7 straight wins. The Birdstone by 22 lengths, the Brooklyn by 9, the Marathon by 11. I liked him a little bit more, but that 14th post position definitely is going to make me rethink that. He's going to be on the outside. They're going to be going 112 to 113. And when you look overall at Next, his handicapping splits in his last races: 116 in the Greenwood Cup, 114 in the Brooklyn Handicap, 113 in the Murphy Marathon, 115. My biggest question with next is, can he handle a 112 or 113 pace of the Breeders' Cup Classic? And if they start going 111 and change, I just don't think Next has ever faced those type of fractions. And I would just be worried that he's going to be sucked up into a fast pace here in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I think Next, I'm glad he's in the race. I think he adds a little bit of intrigue. He's 8-1 in the morning line. But I do worry about him getting sucked into a fast pace here in the Breeders' Cup, and definitely something you may want to look at when you analyze those fractions of the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, Simon says, I heard that when Fierceness retires, he will stand at Coolmore US Stud. That's what they've announced. That came up the other day. I guess they made that deal last year before the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and there is still a possibility that he could run next year as a 4-year-old, and they are talking about the Saudi Cup as a possible race as a 4-year-old. So I kind of, Anthony says he hasn't faced these types. A little bit of a difference between the grade 3 races that he's been running in and also going up in class here in this race. But I do think he'll be higher than 8-1 on the morning line. I'm thinking Next will be more like 15-1 on the Breeders' Cup Day. Other intrigue, we've got 19 Japan horses entered. Breeders' Cup Classic, you've got Forever Young, Derma Sotogake, Ushba Tesoro, Forever Young, 6 for 7. Derma Sotogake, second last year in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Ushba Tesoro, starting to like him a little bit. I think he's the best deep closer in this field as far as consistent. So I do think the Japan horses definitely will be able to take advantage if there is a fast pace, even if we get a little bit above average pace in that Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday. Now, one thing about Fierceness, 5 for 5 when leading at the stretch. In the Kentucky Derby, he was already starting to get gas, 10th by 11th, and he got a little bit of pressure in the Holy Bull. We had Hades take advantage of that inside post that day on a day when the speed may have been advantageous to be on the inside. Now, Fierceness came a little bit off the pace with a 3-wide trip in the Travers Stakes, but that speed that day did kind of fade going into the turn. Also, he was challenged late in the race by Torpedo Anna, and he really wasn't challenged going into the turn. So that is something to think about with Fierceness. Is he going to get challenged by City of Troy, who may possibly show some speed, but does he have enough speed on the dirt to challenge him? Maybe Next, but I don't think Next has ever faced those type of fractions. And then you've got a horse like Arthur's Ride, who set the pace at 1 1/8 in the Whitney Stakes, who went wire to wire at Saratoga on a speed fight biased racetrack on Saratoga Day. Fierceness retires. Yeah, it's going to be sad. Although I do think he'll run next year as a 4-year-old. We'll see. It all depends on the pace of the race. I don't think any track really favors speed on different days. You can have some closers doing well, but overall, Del Mar, if you get the fast enough fractions, I do think we can get some closers here in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, the big handicapping question is Aidan O'Brien, 0 for 17 in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Of course, Giants Causeway and Saki have come over and run well, going from turf to dirt, but that is the big question. Joe T says City of Troy will have a tough time to pull this one off. He galloped over the track today. He galloped a couple of weeks ago at Southwell, but that was on a synthetic surface. We'll see. We've had some horses that can run well on the dirt, but in the Breeders' Cup at the top class racing level, it is hard to go turf to dirt. Physically, he's out of a Galileo mare, and he did have a full brother by Justify that was more of a 7 furlong to 1 mile type. He did have a few half brothers by Warfront, but it's interesting. There's a lot of turf in this pedigree. You've got Warfront, they bred that mare to. You've got Theatrical, another horse who really is known for turf horses. But if City of Troy goes off at 4 or 5 to 1, that would be worth betting. But I don't know if I want him as a 5 to 2 favorite. Charles says, Fierceness, as much as I love him, he might be better as a 1.125 horse. Again, the smaller field in the Jim Dandy, he won at a 1.125. Kentucky Derby, he got a little bit more pace pressure. So we will see how that pace kind of shapes out. Now, another handicapping question is Torpedo Anna. You know, normally I would be kind of leery of a horse like Torpedo Anna. She's danced all the dances, long campaign, but she has, you know, she looks good over the track. Her most recent workout, she seems to have a lot of energy. So we'll see what Torpedo Anna. It's going to be a short price with Idiomatic scratched, probably looking at 2 to 5, maybe 3 to 5 on the Distaff on Saturday for Torpedo Anna. Of course, second to Fierceness in the Travers. She rallied late. She did one on a sloppy track in the Kentucky Oaks. She ran a mile. I think they should just go out there and show speed, take it to the field early. That's what they did in the Kentucky Oaks. Brian Hernandez out of post position number 2. We will see if Torpedo Anna elects to go out early in this race. Now, Awesome Result, going to take a lot of money in that Distaff. I did want to point out, you know, she's been heavily favored in all of her races. 2.6 to 1, 1.10, even money, 1.3, 30 cents on the dollar. So she's pretty much outclassed those horses, but she has been running long distances, 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles a couple of times. So I'm not so sure 1.125 miles, is she going to have enough speed in a smaller field where Torpedo Anna could possibly be setting the pace and slowing down the fractions with Torpedo Anna. So Awesome Result. She's been running longer. She's been kind of overmatching her opponents. I think she's going up a little bit in class in this race for Torpedo Anna. When you take a look at that, you know, overall, some long shots. Give me your long shots on Breeders' Cup Day. Awesome Result, I think, may be a little bit under event. Now, for favorites, I think these 5 favorites are going to be the key to the day. Lake Victoria, East Avenue, North Century, Warlike Goddess, Notable Speech. I really think only about 2 of those 5 are going to win. That'd be 40%. I think we can get some 4 or 5 to 1s to win over the course of these 2 days. Anthony says Ways and Means is probably going to bounce. She's the favorite in the filly and mare sprint. Society, I think, is primed to run a good race. I think Scylla on the cutback could be a long shot to consider on Saturday. Anthony says Warlike Goddess maybe bounces. You know, she's facing a full field, 4th attempt at the Breeders' Cup. Warlike Goddess, she finally gets the distance, but she's been facing smaller fields the last couple of times. We'll see what type of trip she's able to work out here on Saturday. Now, I do like Candide as a good long shot. I thought she had to show more speed at Keeneland. I think she's best as a true closer. I think Candide is going to lay back, and that's when she's going to run her best race on Saturday. So I do like Candide as a good long shot to complete that exacta. Now, somebody asked about Forever Young, any concern about drawing the rail? So I took a couple of screen grabs. Here's Forever Young in this last race. Basically, he had the 2-path. Now, remember, they went counterclockwise in Japan in that last race. Now, the race before that, in the UAE Derby, again, Forever Young was kind of in the 2-path to maybe the 3-path. He was outside this horse in that race. Now in the Kentucky Derby, he did run out in the center of the track. I don't think it's going to affect him that much, but I think it's a good question. I don't think they light the rail. But I do think Forever Young prefers to be a little bit outside horses. I also think Fierceness prefers to be outside horses. And that's my concern with Fierceness on Saturday, is if Arthur's Ride comes out, shows this speed, that may show Fierceness to the rail. And in his best race in the Florida Derby, he was out in the middle of the track. In the Travers, he was 3 wide, out in the middle of the track down the lane. And also in the Jim Dandy, he took the lead on the outside. So I'm not so sure Forever Young, that inside post position, he doesn't need to show a lot of speed. And so it's possible all of the speed is outside of Fierceness, especially with Arthur's Ride. And we'll see where City Troy, if he wants to show a lot of speed early, I think he'll get more of a middle pack trip. I think Forever Young should get a good race to come from off the pace. Daryl Anthony says the Classic's going to be a great race to the wire. I do think Ushba Tesoro is primed to run a good race. I think Sierra Leone finally gets a full field and a lot of pace to run at in this race. So I think he could be in the exacta or trifecta. So the way I see it with my kind of pace analysis, I've got early pace, Arthur's Ride, Fierceness, and City of Troy. I've got Oppressor as Highland Falls and Mabley Forever Young. And then the closers are Ushba Tesoro, Sierra Leone, Senior Buscador, and Tapit Trice as probably the deeper closers. I think Forever Young and possibly City of Troy, if he doesn't show early speed, I think he'll make his mid-race move. But City of Troy is kind of a big question mark. Some of these horses have run big races, switching to the dirt. I just don't want that 5-2, 3-1 price. If it was more 5-1, I'd be inclined to use them. So I'm going to be kind of backing off on City of Troy. I'm going to use mainly Forever Young, Ushba Tesoro, Arthur's Ride. I may use Sierra Leone on a couple of tickets. I'm going to try to go a little bit more for a price in that Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, win contenders for that Breeders' Cup Classic, you can make the case for Arthur's Ride. I think the best race of the year was probably as Whitney. He's ran a 111 and a 110 Beyer speed figure. Fierceness ran a 110 in the Travers Stakes. City of Troy, just on a class level, you have to respect the class. Ushba Tesoro, he fired a big Dubai World Cup. He came running late last year in the Breeders' Cup. I think he needs a little bit more forward position. Derma Sotogake got second last year, but he never really was in danger of winning the race. He kind of made a late move in that race. Forever Young will be in the BW Oppressor and Closer. So we'll see what Forever Young's. Charles says, I think Forever Young after the first quarter and the last quarter, he'll be too exhausted. We'll see what you got to do. Daryl says, Del Mar track holds the speed. Early runners may have a little bit of an edge. Possibility. If you get enough pace, I think we can have some closers. But if there's no pace, Fierceness may be able to slow down that pace. Kevin likes Newgate. Newgate out of post position 13. Next, I think he'll be up against it. He's shown a little bit more tactical speed, but that was going 1.5 miles, 1.75 miles. So I'm not sure he can show that out of post position number 14. Now, again, that classic field, Forever Young. Highland Falls, kind of interesting. Anybody like Highland Falls? He really took it to Arthur's Ride in the Jockey Club, going 1.25 miles. Mixto won the Pacific Classic. Senior Buscador, of course, he ran big in the Saudi Cup. Derma Sotogake always runs there in these big races. Pyrenees looks good. Of course, he ran second in the Jockey Club. Fierceness, Tapit Trice won the Woodward Stakes. Sierra Leone hasn't run one since the Bluegrass Stakes, but definitely something to take a look at. Now, the Breeders' Cup Classic preview is up online if you want to watch that. We'll have a couple of more previews up. The Distaff will be up next. And also, my free racing picks, you can sign up. I will have a Friday edition, a Saturday edition, at least 3 horse picks in every race. And they'll come out Friday and Saturday, an hour before Breeders' Cup post. So it'll be more late in the afternoon. I'll wait till the scratches are announced, and then we'll have a Friday edition and a Saturday edition. Also, Friday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. We'll come back. We'll come on. We're going to go through all of the Saturday races, my top 3 picks. We'll go over some pace analysis, and we'll come back with that on Friday night. Remember, if you have any questions, leave them in the description or here on the comments. And so we got a Fierceness fan as still won to Beach on Saturday. So that's going to do it for tonight's show. But Friday night, 8 o'clock, we'll probably have a few more scratches by then. We'll start handicapping the show, and we'll have some betting recommendations for Saturday. And we'll see. Remember, yes, definitely we have our opinions, but horses will have the answers according to D. Wayne Lucas. So that's a look at the Breeders' Cup Handicapping show Friday night, 8 o'clock Central p.m. Leave your questions in the chats or comments. We'll come back on Friday night with all of your questions and recommendations on Saturday for the Breeders' Cup 2024.